Hi, and welcome to Objective Health. I am your host today. My name is Erica, and joining me in the virtual studio is Doug, Elliot, Tiffany, and in the background is Damien. Thanks all for joining today.
Hello.
Hello.
So today we're going to talk about the brave new world that we're actually living in. So you can't make this stuff up. You know what I mean? It's every day is just, I wake up going, what's today going to bring? Mm-hmm. So for those who are not familiar with Aldous Huxley's book, it was written almost over 60 years ago. And it basically foresaw a future where social control had been perfected through the dumbing down of people, genetic engineering, and the prodigious use of recreational drugs and no-string sex. It's kind of a little, small summary of what the book is about. And we're seeing it happen live, direct, daily. Just the
and we're not
things.
Even in the thick of it yet.
No.
I mean, we already have no-string sex and the prodigious use of drugs. I mean, whether they're street drugs or pharmaceuticals. So we haven't perfected the population control yet, but we're well on our way.
Yes, exactly. And one of the themes in the book is this idea of acquiescence to authority, kind of in comparison to like George Orwell's 1984, where, you have that boot on your face or your neck or wherever it is, and they're holding you down. Whereas Brave New World was more like, these kinds of, this kind of control or this acquiescence to authority would be more through mindless consumerism, and imposed and bludgeoned on, in a very kind of manipulative, sneaky sort of a way, I guess is the term I would use, So you have your freedom, you still have this freedom to kind of do what you like, but it increasingly becomes dystopian,
Yeah. They control what you like more than they control what you can do.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
And so I hope in this show today we can cover just a few things that we're seeing just when we read for these shows and you look at the date on some of these articles. I was mentioning to my guest before the show that you read this article and you think, gosh, this is exactly what's happening right now. And then you look back at the date on the article and it was written in 2012. And and this whole idea of conspiracy theorists and we shared this on a few weeks ago on a show, that now all of a sudden these conspiracy theories are becoming conspiracy fact. Mm-hmm. And it almost boggles the mind. Like I've been sharing, I feel almost a sense of vertigo or deja vu. Like, am I really witnessing this, or have I read so much about conspiracy theories over the years that now I'm like creating this narrative in my mind to explain the madness that's happening around me? Mm-hmm. So I think one of the things I wanted to mention is this idea of contact tracing. And how we're going to start monitoring people that may or may not have had the virus through technology like cell phones, and where this can go. I mean, you can think, well, I don't own a cell phone, or I have a dumb phone, or I turn it off. I don't take it where I go. But that doesn't mean that every person that you interact with daily, once you're allowed to leave your environment, your home isolation, that their technology is also going to be tracking and tracing you.
Yeah.
So even if you quote unquote opt out, you're still going to be, your life is going to be monitored.
Yeah. Right. I mean, there's still satellites, there's still CCTV cameras, there's medical devices, there's all these different kinds of things that are basically, I mean, this whole, basically COVID was the excuse to roll all this stuff out. That's what it seems like to me anyway. I mean, it was already coming for a long time, but it kind of really kicked into high gear once they had the excuse. The contact tracing is like the excuse to roll all this kind of stuff out, and they're more likely to get acceptance for that from most of the population because it's for everybody's safety. It's for our own good. It's to prevent deaths, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. So people don't see it as the insidious thing that it actually is.
Well, as long as they put it's for your health, people will go along with it. But if they didn't have that little caveat on there, most people will come to my house and ask how I'm doing. What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Come take my temperature, have my temperature checked before I go in this place. Are you stupid? Wear a piece of cloth on my face? Are you insane? But it's for your health. Oh, okay, I'll go along with it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're seeing this whole kind of idea of illegal surveillance, arrest, incarceration potentially without due process. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true.
Who was the person? I don't know if it was some kind of health official or law enforcement official in Ventura County, California. And he was talking about how they were going to be training all these contact tracers to come to people's houses and do wellness checks. And if someone tested positive for COVID-19, they want to make sure that they were safe and they quarantined themselves in their houses. However, if they live in a house where 2 or 3 other people live and they only have one bathroom, well, that's not good. So these people are going to have to go to one of our facilities, which we have ready, as long as they're treated with dignity, of course. And, they'll have to be quarantined there because they don't have their own bathroom. And I'm thinking the facilities that they're going to take them to, they have their own private bathrooms, I'm sure. But even the thought of this, you're going to take me out of my house because I tested positive for some nothing burger virus and send me to some facility? Are you crazy?
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. And people did kind of get up in arms about that, and the guy had to walk it back some, but that's fully the intent. I think he showed his hand there.
He meant what he said.
Yeah. And I don't know who that guy was.
Because other people have said similar things. I mean, this is going on worldwide. It's obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously planned out. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And the whole thing, the one thing that I find really curious is how much the whole 5G network seems to tie in with all of this. The 5G thing, the whole Internet of Things. Before, we did a show in the past where we were talking about it. We're who the hell wants this? Why do you want your fridge and your toaster hooked up to the internet? It doesn't make any sense. Now it makes sense because those things are data vacuums, basically. They're just sucking up all your data. Where you been? What are you buying? What did you put in your fridge? What's going on here? Those things, this whole 5G network, this whole Internet of Things, it's the new spying state. That's what it is. Yeah. Before it seemed just silly. It's nobody wants this stuff. And it's oh, now I get it. Okay, that's what's going on.
Well, yeah, and another thing about this 5G is not that I even think that, there's people out there saying that COVID was caused by 5G. I don't believe that at all. But you have to realize that they were designating certain businesses or certain jobs as essential and non-essential. 5G was still being installed while people were on lockdown.
Yeah.
So the authorities think 5G is essential. Why do they think it's essential?
Exactly.
It's essential to them for some reason.
Yeah.
And we know what that reason is, of course, but
yeah.
They want absolute information awareness over everybody.
At all times.
Yes.
Yeah.
That could be used against you in the future, if you think about the cell phone technology of recording your conversations, or even, you have a cough, I kind of now, as a joke on the phone, if I cough, this paranoid thought goes through my mind, and I say, oh, it's just a lingering dry cough. It's the pollen. You know what I mean? Because how do all of a sudden a message is going to pop up oh, you need to be tested.
Yeah. Is that a cough we hear? Yeah. mean,
Or Alexa will start talking to you. I noticed that you just coughed. You need to report to your nearest Amazon testing facility within 24 hours.
it's not far off, man. I bet that's probably pretty accurate. The other thing that's crazy too is all the medical devices that are coming out too. The things that kind of like, you breathe into a thing and it tests tests the air that you're breathing out, and it's then read by your cell phone, that kind of thing. So it's probably going to get to the point where people don't even have to go anywhere for testing. It's just the climate regulation in their house actually is scanning all the viruses that are coming through it at all times, and somebody in your house has COVID, so we're locking it down, dragging you from your homes. I don't know, maybe that's a bit far further off, but I read about these medical devices, I'm kind of like, that's pretty crazy. Like being able, it can actually take your blood and determine whether or not there are viruses or bacteria there and stuff like that, and you get the reading on your cell phone. And of course, it's instantly wired to your doctor, your health insurance company, and the officials, the contact tracing authorities.
The authorities.
Exactly.
Yeah, so if you're in the US and you're out of work, they are going to be offering jobs to Americans. They're looking for upward of 300,000 people to be contract tracers. And this was actually on CBS News. They were talking about how as historic unemployment levels soar, the hottest job of the year could be a lifesaver, a contact tracer. And you can make up to $65,000 a year. And then Roger Shapiro, professor of medicine at Harvard School of Public Health, says, I do think that it's a fantastic job for people who've been furloughed, and it's something that people can be trained to do. It takes some training, but it's not impossible to train almost anybody with reasonable social skills who can work off a script, begin a conversation with people, and convey key messages and collect data.
Snitches.
So like you were saying, yeah, Tiff, like come into your house. Oh, we'll take so-and-so, we'll take Johnny down to this center, which we've speculated over the years could be beneath Walmart or something. You know what I mean? And, they'll monitor for your health impacts, and God forbid you should spread it to anybody in your family. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Insane. You can't make this shit up. I mean, excuse me, stuff.
I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
Some of the scariest words ever uttered. I don't know who said that, but yeah.
I mean, the thing is, right, this was like the stuff of movies, yes. like crappy 1970s movies, like 30 years in the future, and then gradually over the years, I mean, in the past 15 years or so, you've had conspiracy theorists who've essentially come out and said, right, okay, this is going to happen. Now, they could quite easily have been dismissed, right? They could be dismissed as doomsday tellers and, all of that kind of stuff, like irrational fears of this kind of, technocratic, authoritarian state kind of thing that was not immediately apparent at the time. But since this COVID stuff, it's like, now you can see that it's a very real possibility, especially as things are really heating up now. It's like everything's speeding along. It's like they have they have the basis to launch a lot of this stuff that they'd had in place, for many years. And we've had bits of information coming out here, there, and it's been on SOT for however long. And all of it has never really fit together in any, real way. Whereas now it's like this event in a previous show, Erica, you said, this COVID stuff is like 9/11 on steroids. It's like when you have one of these events, it's like it speeds the timeline along. Mm-hmm. It's like, putting it on super drive. So now it's like we've had this event. It's like everything now has like a free reign to go onto super drive. It's like all of this really crazy stuff. They can quite easily kind of introduce it now. I think they've got good reason to, and people I think will accept it as well. With this contact tracing stuff, it's like many people think that that's actually a good thing, and that it's helpful for society, and that they're doing a good job, and that they're, you know, helping to protect the health of the elderly and things like that. Where in fact, you know, if you look at it from a different perspective, you can see that actually it's a pretty dangerous thing that we've got going on here. But when it's in the name of kind of protecting society, then people, you know, many people jump on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's also this idea of like, we're not going to be able to open till these types of secure measures are in place. You know, that's the real mind bender, you know, like here people are barely surviving, if they're surviving. I mean, I think in the US unemployment claims are up to like 1 million, you know what I mean? So people are ready to get back to earning money to support their families. And so it's like, well, you have to do this in order to do that. And most people out of desperation are like, okay, you know, I'll take the vaccine, I'll take the contact tracer. I just got to get back to work so I can pay my mortgage, you know? So it's that fear-driven mentality without thinking it through. Like, well, what does this mean now? Like, does the contract tracing end once, you know, this virus petals out at the end of next year or something? No. Or is it just going to become the new norm? You know, it's going to be something different.
I'm thinking it's the new norm. I mean, the other thing besides the contact tracing, as well as the immunity passport, that whole idea where you kind of have something on you that indicates your immune status, essentially. And I mean, really, that's kind of a code word for saying whether or not you've had the vaccine or what vaccines you've actually had. And just the fact that it's a passport, you know, linking it to travel, it's like, where are you not allowed to go if your immunity passport is not up to date, if you don't have all the shots that you're supposed to have? It's the same idea with, you know, the contact tracing is kind of more like trying to follow the virus as it spreads through, but the immunity passport is almost more sinister because it's kind of like following you, like everything that you do. Like, who knows what this passport is going to be necessary for? Are you going to be able to buy and sell goods if you don't have your immunity passport up to date? Like, how far are you going to be able to travel? Can you walk around the block? You know, any of those kinds of things. So, yeah. And, you know, of course, there's talk of that as well. And, you know, it is backed up by the fact that Bill Gates has patents out and all that kind of stuff, and they're actually working on it. But that actually being a tattoo, that you have a tattoo, some kind of fancy microchip or barcode or something like that, that is essentially a database of your health status, your vaccination status.
And he's been doing it in India. You know, I didn't realize this till just recently that they have rolled out just what you're talking about, Doug, in India, you know, on over 1 billion people. And his premise behind it was like, oh, we're offering people opportunity, you know, because now they can get money and now they can have, you know, access to things that they didn't have before. And it's just so frightening, you know, because like Huxley talks about in Brave New World, it's all by consent. People are consenting because they're thinking that it's going to provide more of an opportunity for them in the future without looking at the possibilities for complete and total control of every aspect of your life. And freedom of movement, as you were saying.
Well, even if you don't have a vaccine with a microchip or anything like that in it, there are some officials that are calling for people being tested every single day before they can even leave their houses.
Oh my God.
Like, if your COVID test comes out positive, then whoops, oh well, I guess I can't go to work today. I have to isolate myself. Or, you know, if your husband or your wife tested positive, you got to stay in the house. You have to get tested every day before you can do anything. And I mean, you don't really need like a microchip in order to restrict your movements, because we don't have that now, and people are willingly staying in their houses just because somebody told them to.
Yes,
that's true. Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of like the old like communist regimes where they were like, any cop could approach you on the street and say, papers, please. Show me your papers. And it's like, it's the same kind of thing. Show me your immunity passport. Let me see it. Regardless of what form it's in, whether it's a tattoo or a microchip or your phone or whatever the case may be, or literally a sheet of paper. It's like, you're going to have to produce that. There is no freedom of movement. You can't even go to the corner store.
And speaking of smart appliances and things like that, those smart locks on your doors, I was just thinking, like, what if they just lock you in your house?
Yeah.
Or people chanting, build that wall, build that wall.
Yeah.
Well, do you think maybe the wall is meant to keep you in?
Yes.
That's a good point.
It sets a very dangerous precedent, right? In that, any potential dissenting voice in society, anyone who speaks out, against what's going on could very well become the enemy of the state, so to speak. And they could have 100% full control over everything that you do, and completely just erase you from society, essentially. Just erase you completely, in that you no longer exist. You can no longer go to the store. You can no longer get in your house. You can't get out of your house. It's it's really, it's frankly dangerous. The way that this could go.
For sure. And the other thing that they're trying to do is actually get rid of cash. Ever since this whole COVID thing's been going on, they've been talking about how dangerous cash is because, it's passing between hands and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, if that goes completely digital, then they'll have complete control over your wallet too. And sorry, go ahead, Tiff.
Well, if you consider the inaccuracy of these COVID-19 tests in the first place, like, you could test positive and you certainly don't have COVID-19, or they could just say you tested positive for COVID-19, or if you happen to be a dissenter or go against the grain or speak about going against the grain or question anything in public, they could just say, oh, he tested positive for COVID-19. He's going to have to go to one of these detention centers. Any of that could happen.
Yeah, and it's back to that, your rights are done. Like, you don't have an opportunity to prove, like, hey, can I have a second opinion that maybe your test didn't work? Maybe I should take another test. You know what I'm saying? You're automatically guilty. And it's really hard to come back from that.
Yeah, and who would stand behind you? Not the people who are calling the people who are protesting selfish. They're certainly not going to stand up for you, even though you're standing up for their rights by doing what you're doing in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that was interesting about that contract tracing, I was just looking at, so apparently it's a House of Representatives bill, and the number of it is 6666.
Yeah. Can you believe it?
All the other numbers were taken.
Exactly. Just so happened.
I mean, I'm like, this has got to be like the Onion, right? Like, no, this can't be real. This is just, I better go back and make sure that is. And $100 billion of taxpayer money is going to fund this type of thing, with entities like the CDC choosing, how this money is allocated. You can't make this up.
Speaking of 666, there was Robert F. Kennedy wrote a really good article on his children's health defense, The Brave New World of Bill Gates and Big Telecom. So Bill Gates, he's just all over this thing.
Yeah, he is.
You just lift up one corner and there he is in his stupid little sweater. He has a patent out, WO 2020-06-06-06.
Yeah. And it's a crazy one too.
It's straight out of the Matrix. I could not believe it when I first heard about it. So I guess this device, it's a cryptocurrency system, and it's capable of using body activity data to mine Bitcoin in response to compliance with assigned tasks. So this device can measure your bodily functions and actually, it doesn't draw energy, but I guess it translates your bodily functions into energy, and they mine that to make cryptocurrencies.
I've never really understood the whole, like, how cryptocurrency mining actually works. Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, but yeah, it's something like using your biology. Like when you complete a particular task or something like that, like watch an ad or whatever the case may be, it somehow converts that into currency somehow, and you get paid for it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if
straight out of
any
the
of you
Matrix.
have ever seen that episode of Black Mirror, and I don't know what the episode is, but it's basically there was this bunch of young people, and they lived in this world where they went to this facility every day, and they just pedaled a bike all day long, and they would get like points or something that they could use to pay for things. And they, at night, they went into this little cubicle, which was their bed, and it was surrounded by TV screens, and they just were forced to watch ads. And if they tried to ignore it, it would just keep coming at them. They had to watch this or whatever the algorithm recommended for them. But they pedaled all day on these bikes, and that's how they were able to live, if you could call what they were doing living.
Yeah, that was a crazy episode.
So Bill Gates thinks that this kind of thing is just awesome, apparently.
Yeah, that whole article by RFK Jr. was really, like, just reading it, you're kind of like, what, really? The conspiracy, well, it's like you said at the beginning of the show, Erica, like, it is now. This is now.
Yes.
We are living in, like, Black Mirror was only off by a couple of years, basically. We're more or less there.
Yeah. Well, in that article, too, they talk about that controlling reproduction and how he invested $18 million in microchips, a company that developed birth control implant chips with wireless on and off switches. I mean, just listening to him talk about population control and how if they just give people vaccines and these kinds of birth control trips that it's going to make the population healthier so that people don't have as many children. I mean, like, you listen to this guy and you're like, who's talking in his little earpiece is what I want to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the scary part, is that somebody is telling him what to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
and that people buy it. That people are like, oh my God, he's the greatest thing ever. That's so great.
That's one of the craziest things. Like seeing like things float around on Facebook talking about how great Bill Gates is and all this kind of stuff, and how he saves babies in Africa and all this kind of stuff. It's like do a little bit of reading, man. Like this guy is not who you think he is. The stuff that he is bringing out is not in your best interest. He is the ultimate. We did our last show on authoritarians. He is the ultimate authoritarian right now. He's like, he's the pinnacle. He's the boss. He's the lead authoritarian. Final boss.
Final boss.
Well, if you look at some of the comments under his Instagram, not everybody thinks that this guy is hot shit.
That's true. That's true.
But the news media, to have them tell it, he's just God incarnate.
Yeah, he's a philanthropist. Oh, well, we could go on and on, but I really do recommend for our listeners and viewers to go back and give Brave New World a read, or it is on audio book too, which is great because it's got the British accent of the reader. And George Orwell's 1984 and even Animal Farm, because like you read these things and you go out in your community and you see what's happening on the news and whatnot, and you're just like, wow, you cannot make this up. This is really happening in real time. And I think it's important for those of us that can see it to witness it and to talk about it and to share the information with others, because it's a slippery slope. Most definitely. So
Yeah.
I thank you all for joining me, and please like and subscribe. And we look forward to coming back again, sharing as this whole brave new world develops right before our very
Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.